Okay, so we're going to create our second part now with the second tutorial. So I'm going to make sure that we're okay. Let's make sure we immediately go down and change to millimeters. And let's go back to our tutorials. And we're going to create the back part of this thing. So very similar to the way that we started our previous tutorial. We're going to create this this block that is 120 by 120 millimeters. This time the depth when we extrude it is going to be 90. Okay, and it wants us to fillet the corners at 10, just like the other ones. We're going to do all of those here in our first step. We're going to extrude boss base on the front plane with a rectangle. We're going to dimension that rectangle at 120 by 120. I'm going to exit that sketch, and we're going to set the depth at 90. And then we're going to go right in and fillet this edge, this edge, this one, and this one's kind of tricky because you got to find it, and set it at 10 millimeters. Done. Next, we're going to shell. We're going to shell this part out here, and it says to set the shell at 4. Okay, so click on the face of this. And we're going to shell. We're going to set our depth at 4. And we're good there. It wants us to save this as Tutor 2. So let's do a save as. And we're going to call this Tutor 2. Okay, now it wants us to zoom right up close on the corner here because we're going to cut this lip on it. And so let's zoom in fairly close so that we can see what we're doing here. So it says it wants us to click on the face of this thin wall and then say that we're going to do a cut on this wall. So we're going to go cut. And it wants us to click on convert entities. So convert entities is right here. And then we have to select that face again. Just click on the face again. Make sure we're right in the face here. And it wants us to go offset. And the offset distance that it wants us to offset is at 2. So we're going to change from 10 here. We're going to change this to 2. But it's going the wrong direction. I don't want to cut outside of this. So I need to click on this reverse right here to make sure that the cut is coming down in. And so we're going to exit now, and we're going to set our depth of our cut at 20. Okay, so we're good with this. And we want to exit the sketch. And we don't want to go through the whole thing. We want to go only at 20. So it's going to cut this little half edge off of the top of this thing. Now, if yours is on the bottom, see this flip cut here. If you do flip cut, it'll cut out the bottom part. So we're going to cut this top edge off. And that will be the part that slides into the other part that we just created previously. Okay. So next on that. So we have created this. It wants us to give it some color. So it wants us to right click on Tutor 2 up at the top in the feature manage your design tree, go to appearances, and give it a color. So it wants us to come up here, click on this, right click on it, go to this appearances, and it wants us to give it some color. A lot of blue. Okay. Now it wants us to put these into an assembly. So let's save this real quick. Save. So now we're going to go new, and we're going to create an assembly, and we're going to insert tutor 1, which is this one, and tutor 2, which is this one. Okay. So let's go file new, and we're going to create an assembly. Okay. Now, the first thing I want to do is I want to make sure I pin this. I'm going to keep this visible. So I'm going to click on that pin right there because I want to add both of these out here. If I don't pin that, as soon as I drag out the one, this is going to disappear. And then I'm going to have to reopen this thing. So it's just easier if you click stay open. So now I'm going to click and hold and drop out tutor 1 by clicking. I'm going to go to tutor 2, single click on it, bring it out, and drop it off right next to it. Okay, I can drop off several of these if I want, but I don't want to. So I am now done with that. And I now have the two parts that I'm ready to mate together. So to mate those two, we're going to choose the mate command. Well, here's the mate command. And it wants to know, okay, what parts do you want where? All right, so I'm going to zoom in a little bit here so you can see this a little bit better. I want this back edge right here. This back edge is going to touch this top edge right here. Not the bottom one, but the top right there. These two are going to be touching when this thing is together. So in the mate selection, I'm going to select very carefully that edge and that edge. And notice it moved them, it aligned them to a point where they are now they're now in line with each other. They are coincident with each other. So I'm going to single check mark on this part. And if you take a look, if I click and hold on this thing, if I move it around, it stays, no matter what angle I'm at here, it stays even with that edge and this edge are now, they're locked in. Okay, so let me pull this back. I now want this top and this top to be coincident. So coincident, I want this top face and this top face. So now it aligns those two, and those two are now aligned with each other. And I'm going to single click on the green check mark. We got one more. I'm going to make coincident this face here and this face here. Notice it slid them in. I'm going to hit check mark and check mark one more time to be done. And so now these two are mated together. And we had to do 3 of those sites, the face, this face, and then those edges right there. And that put those 2 pieces together perfectly. So all of those are now together. And they look similar to what we have here. It has us going through, it wanted you to make some lines, turn this thing so you could see through it, so you could see that they're mated together. You can do that if you'd like. So that is part 2 of the second tutorial.